Hi, Texas A&M students. My name is Sarah Rowley, and I work with Oakland Voices, which is a community journalism project. And I'm here to interview my husband, Bill Rowley. Bill, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Bill Rowley. I'm Sarah's husband, and I work at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, which is part of the University of California. It's under contract at Department of Energy, but the purpose of my being here is I'm also a union representative for the technical and research units at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and we are represented in UC, which is the University of California, sorry for you Texas folks, by UPTE, which is the University Professional and Technical Employees, which is a UC-wide union, a University of California-wide union that represents the technical, research, and healthcare employees at the University of California, all of its campuses. And I'm a representative from one of the campuses, which is Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Sorry.
All right, so thank you for sending us your questions. We're going to go through the list and we'll get to it. Okay, first question, Bill, is what are your experiences as a union president and union representative? How and why did you decide to become one? And what were the qualifications that helped you become part of your union? And what are your duties?
So at our chapter, which I said is referred to as Local 184, we're actually a chapter of UPTE, which is a local of a larger union, the Communication Workers of America. I'm the local they call it the local president or the chapter president, basically the lead representative for the technical and research employees at our laboratory. Basic union representation stuff, bargaining, stewarding. I coordinate with all the stewards that we've got at the laboratory who represent workers in workplace issues with management. And then on bargaining, we do contract bargaining, both local contract bargaining and contract bargaining as part of the bigger UC-wide contracts that we have. And then as far as my qualifications, to be an officer at a local, you just have to have over 1 year of good standing as a member of that local. And I started at the lab in 2007, and in 2008, about the time I was eligible, we were already in contract bargaining. And so I stepped up and was invited to run for local office. And that year there was no competition, so it was pretty easy. And that's how I got involved. And pretty much immediately after taking office, at the time I was recording secretary, I also went to stewards training and started helping employees with workplace issues.
All right. So starting with collective bargaining, what can you tell us about your experiences with collective bargaining? Has it been fruitful? Has it been challenging? Where would you like to start with that?
Well, collective bargaining in the state of California, we have collective bargaining rights for public employees, and we're a public sector union. And so management has to meet with us as a group, as a union, and discuss issues for our different units in their contracts that run from 3 to 5 years each time we negotiate. And basically, I mean, that's my experiences with collective bargaining are that it's like any other bargaining. I imagine it's just you go head to head until you can find some sort of common ground to negotiate on. I mean, the big issues are always the same. It's always wages and benefits, including post-employment benefits like our pension. And it's just a matter of, you start at the beginning of collective bargaining, you send out your proposals, and they're usually very general as far as the topics that you want to talk about. And then once you get into it, usually things bog down pretty quickly. And then over a course of several months, there's, I hate to put it as say, enough pain is inflicted on either side, but that's sort of what happens. And then eventually each side gets tired of the stalemate and moves to, come to sort of a third way on all the issues.
Okay. Have you Can you point to any successes you've had with collective bargaining?
So the biggest success we had with collective bargaining since I've been there was in 2013 when the university was trying to, they had already imposed a second tier for post-employment benefits for our pension on non-represented employees, and several unions had agreed to that plan already, and UPTE, along with AFSCME and CNA, which is the nurses union, which both also have workers at the University of California, came together as a coalition. And though we were bargaining separately, we kept our demands pretty much the same. We stayed on the same page, and we were able to get a modified tier to the second tier for our employees, which are better benefits. So they kept the original set of benefits that the rest of us had.
Okay. Great. So what would you say is the most valuable benefit that your people fight for the union?
The most valuable benefit, cost-wise, the most valuable benefit would be benefits like healthcare and post-employment benefits like retirement. I mean, those are the biggest value. When you work in the public sector, you're usually receiving less pay in exchange for benefits, or lower pay overall in exchange for benefits compared to the private sector. And so the biggest value out of bargaining is that we get to preserve or enhance our benefits like pension, like the contribution that the employer makes to healthcare. The most valuable benefit through a union is bargaining power. It's maintaining your ability to bargain, to keep your collective bargaining rights.
Yeah. So what has been the most challenging situation you have faced with the union?
The most challenging situation with the union that I've faced really isn't specific to the union. It's the general underfunding of public sector services. And so what that's caused and how it's affected the union is we've had a lot more turnover at the University of California since I started in the past few years than we had when I started, and then we'd had prior to my going there or starting work there. And what that means is you have when you have turnover of employees, every time you have a new crop of employees come in, you've got to talk to them about, the benefits of being in a union and try to get them involved, try to get them just to come on as members so that we can present a more united front to the university. That's the most challenging situation I've faced in the union.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay, so moving on to where the law comes in. Where does the law fall short when protecting workers and workers' rights and workers' benefits?
I'd say, generally speaking, for unions in the public sector, in states where they don't have collective bargaining rights, that's where the law falls short. I've been involved with private sector side unions in other jobs. And I would say in the private sector, it's the difficulty in getting a union going and in keeping your bargaining power with management, with all of the, the dynamics of the market, with basically how companies form, can be bought out, management changes, which do affect public employees too. I mean, budgets change in state governments, federal governments. So I would say just dealing with the dynamics of, I know this is a business class, so market changes. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to power structures of the union. Do you know of any union members who have abused the power that the union has given them?
So no, I don't know. Not in my experience. I mean, obviously, if you go back through labor history in the United States, you can find examples where union bosses or, union representatives took advantage of their position, just like you can in any other organization or institution. But no, I mean, for the purpose of the discussion about my union, UPTE, no, I can't think of any situation where we've had any legal issues or any other issues with abuse of power.
Okay. Excuse me. So what is the most controversial issue that your union has dealt with since you've been involved with it?
Dues structure.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's a case before the Supreme Court, Janus versus AFSCME out of Illinois, and that deals with non-members having to pay agency fee, which we refer to in California as fair share. The constitutionality of that is what the Supreme Court's going to be deciding, and just dues in general, where to set dues rates, how much people should be paying. That's really the most controversial issue that we've got.
Yeah, I have a question about that. Is there a sliding scale or some sort of scaled version of that when it comes to dues or fees that you have to pay for the union? Does someone who's making $50,000 a year pay the same as someone who makes $100,000 a year?
So right now, we actually have a dues structure that is pretty much set. It's fixed. It's a capped rate at, for my job, $65 a month.
Okay.
We do not have a properly progressive dues structure.
Okay.
And that's when I say like the dues issue is the most controversial issue union-wide. That is the union representing all campuses at the University of California. When we come together in convention every year, the biggest issue is that we have not gone to a progressive enough dues structure yet.
Got it. Yeah. Have you ever bargained for what you consider an unreasonable demand?
No.
Okay. Can you even think of any unreasonable demands?
It would have to be, to be unreasonable, it would have to be something outside of the scope of what we're bargaining. It would have to be something that, no. I can't think of an unreasonable demand that's been made. I guess, we always complain that when we start bargaining, the university's offering too little, and they would complain we're asking too much. But that's not unreasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, you start at two ends. For an unreasonable demand, you'd be talking about something where you shifted the scope of bargaining outside of where it should be.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I was thinking is maybe way too many days off, or a break room with a ping pong table in it, or
no. I mean, none of that stuff would be unreasonable to ask for.
Okay. Okay. So moving on. Why did you become a union member, and what motivated you?
So I started at the lab in 2007. Prior to that, I'd worked as a contract worker around the country in my field, which is radiation safety. And
you were a freelancer.
Yeah, basically. So I was a contractor.
Yeah.
So finally, I had a permanent position. The position was union represented, and I, like I said, I was there just about the amount of time, just long enough to have started going to union meetings when we went into bargaining in 2008.
Yeah.
And the bargaining immediately became very contentious, and we had limited participation because we'd had a lot of retirements in the union represented positions prior to bargaining. And this is in 2008, and so we needed people to get involved, and I was one of those people, and it was, in my own interest to get involved and
so you were there.
Start to participate.
Did you enjoy the fight of it all?
Sure. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's stimulating. It's certainly, it breaks the monotony of regular work.
Well, and also certainly versus a contractor, you don't have some of these benefits pensions. And
right. You have something to fight for when you're it's more than just a paycheck.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. How has being in a union affected you personally? He works a lot.
Okay. It's given me great personal satisfaction, and it's definitely enhanced my experience of working at the laboratory, being able to get involved with the laboratory at different levels outside of just my own workspace. It does involve a lot of extra work, a lot of extra hours. We're a member-run union, so we don't have business agents doing our stewarding or our bargaining. It's all the bargaining and stewarding are done by members and the organizing, and so it takes a lot of extra time.
Yeah. What is your greatest accomplishment with the union? What are you most proud of?
It's more of a general accomplishment. It's just, we've had 3 rounds of contract negotiations since I've been there. And that's been the greatest accomplishment, just starting and finishing a set of contract negotiations.
Yeah.
So 2008, that bargaining took over 2 years. And my involvement in that was very limited. 2013, I was more involved, and I was involved at the local level because we've got our own wage issues, being a Department of Energy contractor. And then year before last, we had another round of bargaining for wage issues that was pretty satisfying, and then now we're in bargaining again.
Yeah. Okay, so do you think that the union has a positive or a negative effect on Berkeley Labs?
Well, it has a positive effect in that it's preserving workers' ability to bargain for their wages and their benefits.
Yeah.
So it keeps wages and benefits higher, which keeps better quality. I mean, it keeps people wanting to work there. Right,
but from the point of view of Berkeley Labs, like from their management structure, how do you think they feel about unions?
Well, I mean, a union contract, they talk about labor peace, which is if you don't have a contract and you don't have periodic bargaining, then in reality you're constantly bargaining. And so from the perspective of labor peace, it brings some stability to the laboratory. To that environment. All technical positions at the laboratory are represented either by us, by university professional and technical employees, by one of the traditional trade or craft unions who bargain through Alameda Building Trades, or they could be nurses or teamsters. So pretty much everybody that's there in a technical position is covered by a union.
Yeah. Can you give us examples of how your union has benefited its members?
The biggest one is, like I said before, preserving the original pension benefits from 2 rounds of bargaining ago. Yeah. That was huge. Yeah.
Which basically ends up being, 70% of pay?
Well, no. What we preserved was the original pension service credit multiplier, which basically allows people to retire earlier. Okay. So it was 5 years. They pushed it back by 5 years and given a smaller multiplier for your years of service. Oh. So basically you could retire. The old numbers were 50 and then 60 in age, and the university wanted to move it to 55 and 65, and we were able to keep for our people 50 to 60. Oh. That was one thing. There were other benefits too, but
great.
I don't want to go into too much detail.
Okay, has your union saved anyone's job?
Yes, on a number of levels. We've had, or in a number of situations, we've had people have workplace issues where we have stewarded them and been able to resolve it and, overturn terminations. We've had situations where we've helped people, recover their work situation and move in the right direction. Which has helped their employment. We've also had situations where we were facing potential layoffs, or we had contractors working on site doing what would have been union represented work, and we were able to work with management to get those situations resolved. Oh. So yes. Well,
good. I'm sure that they're happy. Okay, so if you coming at this from the point of view of a business owner, what benefits would I see? Having recognizing a union.
So I'd have
There's
to go.
There's a labor piece you mentioned, right?
Right. I mean, going over to the private sector, I understand this is a business class or a management class. Going over to the private sector, labor piece number one. 2, if you can make. Unions can help to implement certain work requirements as far as like training. I mean, if you look at the trades, especially electricians, steel workers, pipe fitters, the union helps to make sure that all employees come with a certain level of training, maintain their training and skills. They can assist with discipline. That would be a definite benefit, helping to organize your workplace better.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. What could I or a laborer, a worker do if they were threatened for joining a union?
That would be retaliation. That's an unfair labor practice. It's illegal to threaten someone for trying to join or form a union, just like it's illegal for a union to threaten someone for not joining. I mean, it's illegal. That's what you can do. You can let the union know or you can let your whatever organization, if it's a union trying to force people to join, muscle. I mean, if anyone tries to intimidate anybody, you basically go back to your organization and report it, and then you can always report it to federal authorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, so can you tell us about your experience with strikes?
Yeah, I can. I'm trying to think. Strikes. 2010 was the only time we had to strike, and we'd been in bargaining for almost 2 years, and we weren't getting anywhere, and the university seemed intractable, and so at the time we weren't bargaining coalition, it was just UPTE that had, I think, 2 units out, RX and T, or research and technical, and we did a strike. It was a 1-day strike, and less than a month or 2 months later, we settled our contract.
Yeah.
I mean, my experience with strikes.
Well, and I'm sorry, but there was also nobody who could cross those picket lines, right? Because your job is so technical.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. So strikes, what we don't have in our type of workplace is we don't have strikes, since we're not a factory, isolated somewhere. We don't have workplace strikes where the gates get closed, management locks everyone out, and you have all access is blocked by people with, burning trash cans and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You have picketers, usually the strikes are not indefinite. Mm-hmm. We've never done an indefinite strike, at least not since I've been there. They're always timed, so it's 1, 2, or 3 days. It's basically a temporary work stoppage. Mm-hmm. And, the media is usually notified. My experience with strikes is that they're very effective for bringing management back to the table.
Interesting. Okay, we're at 22 minutes right now, so let's take a pause and we'll come back later. Thanks.